Yep.
Yeah. I had oral surgery this week, a couple days ago. So if I look a little swollen on the left side, sorry about that. This Gosho, the mission of our Soka network, is on page 107 of volume 7 of Teachings for Victory. Okay? And he quotes and goes back to a lot of Goshos here. I highly suggest everybody, when you see the reference to the Gosho, I'm going to give you the whole list of all the different Goshos that are referenced here. You should really look all this stuff up. Whenever he quotes a Gosho, go see specifically what is he talking about, because it's not always very clear. You know, you think he's taking out a quotation, he's not taking out a quotation sometimes. Sometimes he's expressing the meaning of what's said on that page of that particular Gosho. So it's a great way for you to constantly develop your understanding of the breadth of what the teaching is. Okay, like for instance, he's gonna talk from on practicing the Buddha's teachings, on establishing the correct teaching for the peace of the land, and on let's see, pardon me. Silly me. Pardon me, on repaying debts of gratitude. In addition to all that, from page 499, he's going to talk about a section of the letter to the brothers. Page 535, this is all WND 1. He's going to be talking about that's winter always turns to spring. Is it dripping already? Then turn it off. It's not necessary. It really is not necessary. We've had a few typhoons recently. Also, the opening eye of the eyes on page 286. And I don't need the, you want a picture of this?
Yeah.
How do I do that?
Yeah, just for that person.
Yeah.
There. Done. Got it? Okay. The opening of the eyes, and I already said on practicing the Buddha's teachings, and then on page 149 of the Daimoku of the Lotus Sutra. So he's going to mention all of those Goshos as he goes through, and he references in a modern day era kind of a reference of the Soka Gakkai itself and the mission of the Soka network, okay, which we're a part of, right? Is everybody with me?
Yes.
Okay, so on page 107 of chapter 7, chapter 8, volume 7 of Writings of Nietzsche, or Teachings for Victory. I'm going to go ahead and start. The mission of our Soka network, it starts out on page 107. You're all with me, right? Okay. It says, bringing humanity together with the spirit of compassion. What's he talking about? What's bringing humanity together with the spirit of compassion? Kosen Rufu.
Yeah.
Again, Kosen Rufu. The reason we do Shakabuku is because of our compassion as bodhisattvas of the earth, right? It's not to run up the number of people in our sect or something like that, or to create more income for the temple, okay? It's actually for the pacification of the land, because the idea, what's the idea behind the propagation of law for the peace of the land? The environment always reflects its inhabitants. That's why there's no separation between you and your environment. Okay, if your environment is hell, find Buddhahood there. It's still there. Okay, so this whole thing is about Eshofuni, the inseparability of ourselves and our environment, right? Okay, the oneness of, okay, so going on, he starts then. The dawn of a year of dynamic development has arrived. Now this is, again, he's going to say in a minute, this is from 2015. So that was going on a decade ago. But most of this is completely still relevant. But again, he doesn't know about COVID. COVID's not mentioned in this, although he mentions epidemics coming and possible food shortages. So, okay, the dawn of a year of dynamic development has arrived. I am certain that fresh, vibrant hope fills the hearts of my beloved fellow members as they behold the brilliant sunrise of the year 2015. So this is from the beginning of 2015. It's time to take a bold step forward Now that's what I was talking about 3 weeks ago, taking a bold step forward. And he's saying right now as I read this, it's time to do that. All right? It's time to take a bold step forward. Starting today, please inscribe the record of your fresh advance with the golden letters of victory. Walking the path of mentor and disciple and united with your fellow members around the world, cheerfully create a wonderful story that will endure for all time. So he's saying, become noteworthy in the element of your practice as it relates to Kosen Rufu. Each one of us has the ability to do everything that he's done. All right? He's not special or different from us in any way, shape, or form. Or no matter how much people embellish his resume, there's no doubt he's an incredible human being. Okay? But the point that he's constantly trying to make is that we all have our own mission. He has had his mission. We have ours. You have to complete it. You have to follow through the end of your life to do that. Going on, I still vividly remember the small gathering of global citizens that was held 4 decades ago on January 26, 1975. Now, the significance of that for me is that I know somebody that went to that Guam meeting. I know that somebody that was there. They're Titan right now. Okay? So being able to go to even something as special as the inaugural event for the formation of global SGI, SGI International, okay? Even that is not enough as an activity to see you through your whole life. Okay? It requires you refreshing your determination as a disciple of Nichiren in front of the Gohonzon every day to do that. Okay? So, that's what happens to everybody that stops practicing. They lose the spirit of clarity that was qualified through their daimoku to the Gohonzon. Once you quit chanting to the Gohonzon, you're a common mortal again as far as that's all concerned, because you're not doing Kosen Rufu. You're no longer actually a bodhisattva of the earth. You might have thought you were up until the point that you quit, but once you quit, you validated the fact that you never were. All right? Bodhisattvas of the earth never go Titan in any lifetime, no matter what they face. Okay? So, I still vividly remember the small gathering of global citizens that was held 4 decades ago on January 26, 1975. On the island of Guam, where many had lost their lives in the fierce fighting that took place there during World War II, some 160 pioneering bodhisattvas of the earth from 51 countries and territories assembled for the first World Peace Conference. It was not a meeting of heads of state, scholars, or economists. It was a gathering of ordinary people, and the person that I know was an ordinary person. But in the heart of each person present burned a noble vow transcending differences of race, ethnicity, and nationality. And the reason I mention this individual is that I guarantee you, when she was there, she had burning in her heart a noble vow transcending differences of race, ethnicity, and nationality. And what happened is she had a marital problem and blamed the Gohonzon, or lost faith over that particular circumstance. So it's easy to have strong burning passion for Kosen Rufu one day and to have it be affected by things that have actually nothing to do with the Gosho, nothing to do with the Gohonzon, nothing to do with your individual karma, because no matter how it transpires, you're still responsible for your karma. Okay? So whenever you start blaming the organization or blaming other people for what you're experiencing in daily life, you are full of shit. Okay? And excuse me, whoever is offended by me using cuss words, but I could say "fampi," I could say a lot of different, I could say it in other words other than English. You wouldn't know whether I'm using cuss words or not. This was the day, the moment that the Soka Gakkai International was born. It was. Its members sharing a lofty commitment to open the way to worldwide Kosen Rufu, to world peace. Sowing the seeds of peace throughout the entire world. Now, also, what was the significance of, why did this occur back in 1975? what had happened in Japan prior to that kind of instigated this? Do any of you know this history behind this part of the Soka Gakkai?
No.
Okay. There was a point well before the split with Nikken Shonin. Okay. Initially, when Nikken became high priest, he was tight with the Gakkai. Don't know if you know that. As a matter of fact, they pushed out some priests that were remonstrating against Nikken, saying that he had not legitimately received the transfer process that had gone on from Nitatsu, the previous high priest. So ultimately, though, President Ikeda ran into trouble with the priesthood. They made him step down as president of the Soka Gakkai. But what was the Soka Gakkai back at that point in time? It was a Japanese lay organization. That's why you had Nichiren Shoshu Academy is what I joined. That's what I took how I received my Gohanzen. It wasn't all yet conformed country by country by country into this thing that we call now Soka Gakkai International. Okay, so what had happened is President Ikeda said, okay, I stepped down as a president. I think it was President Harada or something like that took over as the 4th president in Japan. Okay, but President Ikeda went on to not be deterred by what was necessary to keep the peace in Japan and to keep the unity of the entire flow of Kosen-Rufu alive and viable. Okay, it wasn't time yet to have a remonstration with the priesthood over issues that cannot be validated by anything other than life experience. Okay, their whole thing was the high priest is like higher than anything high. I mean, he's the living, the golden utterance. He's the living incarnation of the spirit of the, all kinds of bizarre stuff. Okay. So President Ikeda didn't take all that on at the time. He just organized the entire world because from the very beginning of his presidency, his goal always was to accomplish everything that President Toda had made the promise that the SGI would, the SG, the Soka Gakkai, would accomplish during the course of their history. So one of those things, one of the big things was this issue of worldwide Kosen-Rufu. Okay, and until President Ikeda took off in 1960 and started doing his world tour and planting the seeds in all these different countries and then laying out the coin for there to be community centers when there wasn't enough tithing for it to be supported. All over the world. All over the world. Okay, that's why the Soka Gakkai has so much money. They have so much fortune from donation themselves towards the peace and happiness of people that have nothing to do with them in Japan. Okay, so he's the one that sowed the seeds that created that international identity and a camaraderie and unity of purpose as a lay organization. Okay, because the temple, the head temple, Taisekaji, only had Hokkeko. That was their traditional lay organization that had never done shakabuku. It wasn't even part of the deal. You know, it was a generation to generation support of Taisekaji and the priesthood. Okay, they really didn't get along with the Soka Gakkai. They did shoju. The Soka Gakkai has always done shakabuku. Everybody knows the difference, right? Okay, so this was the beginning of the actual shakabuku campaign of worldwide Kosen-Rufu. And it happened because of the adversity of him being pressured to step down as president. I don't know if he would have taken those steps in the absence of that. So adversity is never something that stops you. It should be always something that inspires you to overcome it with the power of your own life, your own determination. Okay, you with me?
Yeah.
All right, so he says, this was the day, the moment that the Soka Gakkai International was born, its members sharing a lofty commitment to open the way to worldwide Kosen-Rufu, to world peace, sowing the seeds of peace throughout the entire world. During my speech at that first meeting, bottom of page 107, last second column, I declared, the sun of Nichiren Buddhism has begun to rise above the distant horizon. Rather than seeking after your own praise, he was telling the people that were there, or glory, I hope you will dedicate your noble lives to sowing the seeds of peace of the mystic law, sowing the seeds of peace of the mystic law throughout the entire world. I shall do the same. And he set out to do that. Okay, and so all those representatives for all those 151 countries were all wired. They didn't do a lottery and just pick anybody to go to that meeting in Guam. You had to be pretty trusted and respected as a senior leader. Okay, she was a respected and trusted senior leader. She's Titan. Okay, so that's what I'm trying to qualify. Being in any position in the organization doesn't mean anything if you don't continue.
Yeah.
Okay. If there's a shift in the organization and you lose your position, you shouldn't go Titan over that. And I know a lot of people that have. Okay. So that's the only reason I bring that little bit up. I'll continue. Top of page 108, first column. Nichiren Buddhism is the Buddhism of the sun, enveloping all humanity in the compassionate light of respect for life and respect for human beings. During the period of great transition from the 20th to the 21st century, our SGI members exerted themselves tirelessly as good citizens, patiently weathering the turbulence of society and the times while using their wisdom to overcome and triumph over all obstacles. Today, the SGI has grown into a great network of peace, culture, and education encompassing 192 countries and territories. The sun of the humanistic philosophy of Nichiren Buddhism, which broke through the darkness and began to shine on the horizon 4 decades ago, is now illuminating the world ever more brightly. In this chapter, marking the start of the year of dynamic development in the new era of worldwide Kosen-Rufu, I would once again like to discuss a famous passage from Nichiren Daishonin's treatise on repaying debts of gratitude. Okay, now how many of you guys remember when we read that? That was years ago. All right, I don't know. I think I might have even just read it to you. I'm not sure that it was a Gosho lecture from President K. The bottom line is it's 4 or 5 videos long. It took us 4 or 5 meetings to get through that. It's a very long Gosho. It's a very profound Gosho. And in it, what does the Daishonin clarify? We must always have a sense of gratitude to the people that helped us, regardless of how they appear or behave today, okay? Or regardless of whether or not they actually fulfilled their vow while you're still determined to fulfill yours. Okay? This is all about Dozenbo. Remember? His mentor, his teacher at Seichoji Temple when he was growing up from the 16-year-old, right? Okay, that's what that Gosho is all about. All right, so on repaying debts of gratitude. The founder of our movement, Tanesaburo Makaguchi, heavily underlined this passage in his personal copy of the Daishonin's writings. Continuing on the second column of page 108. The Daishonin affirms the fulfillment of his vow. If Nichiren, this is from the Gosho on repaying debts of gratitude from page 736. If Nichiren's compassion is truly great and encompassing, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo will spread for 10,000 years and more, for all eternity. That's what makes him the Buddha of the latter day of the law, because the latter day of the law is how long?
Forever.
Yes, 10 years, 10,000 years and beyond. It's not given a finite timeline. Okay, forever, exactly, Rio. Okay. Nam-myoho Renge-kyo will spread for 10,000 years and more for all eternity, for it has the beneficial power to open the blind eyes of every living being in the country of Japan, and it blocks off the road that leads to the hell of incessant suffering. Its benefit surpasses that of Dengyo and Tentai, and is superior to that of Nege Arjuna and Maheke Shayapa. 100 years of practice in the land of perfect bliss. Dig it. Here's what he's saying. 100 years of practice in the land of perfect bliss cannot compare to the benefit gained from 1 day's practice in the impure world. 2,000 years of propagating Buddhism during the former and middle days of the law Whose time is that? That's Shakyamuni's. Okay? 2,000 years of propagating Buddhism during the former and middle of the days of the law are inferior to an hour of propagation in the latter day of the law. That's why we revere Nichiren as the Buddha of beginningless time. Okay? This is in no way because of Nichiren's wisdom, he says very modestly. And it isn't, because this is the law. This is the law. Even the original teacher had to come to the understanding of what was already there. Okay, none of this is invented by somebody. Should understand that. Okay? This isn't a preaching. This is a teaching. There's a difference. This is in no way because of Nichiren's wisdom, but simply because the time makes it so. In spring, the blossoms open. In autumn, the fruit appears. Summer is hot. Winter is cold. The season makes it so. Does it not? Mm-hmm. That's the Daishonin talking on page 736 of WNG1. On repaying, at the bottom of second column, page 108, on repaying debts of gratitude is an important work that the Daishonin composed upon the death of Dozenbo, the teacher of his youth, to express his gratitude to him. In this writing, the Daishonin explains that, as a young boy seeking the Buddhist way, he made a vow to become a wise person who understood the essence of the Buddha's teachings and to save all people from suffering on a fundamental level. He actually made the vow to become the wisest person in Japan. It is clear that fulfilling this vow was the ultimate purpose to which he dedicated his life. Continuing on page 109, first full paragraph, first column. He concludes this writing by clarifying that Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, and he's just going to slip this in, and you got to perceive what he's saying here. He concludes this writing by clarifying that Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, as the entity of the law, and I got entity circled because he specifically uses that word for a reason, as the entity of the law, encompassing the three great secret laws, is the fundamental teaching for relieving the suffering of all humankind. And I could go to the Risho on Kokoran and back it up, but I'm not going to right now because I'm going to read the whole thing and I'll bring it up then. He further adds that he is the only one in the world after Shakyamuni's passing to begin chanting Nam-myoho Renge Kyo without sparing his voice, which I have always taken as meaning chant whenever you can. Okay, so I chant in the car, I chant everywhere. I used to scare the hell out of people on airplanes because if we hit an air pocket and the plane suddenly dropped, I would Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, and so everybody would be freaked out. But I made sure I got Daimoku in case that plane was going to crash. Okay, so I've never been embarrassed, or nothing's been ever been able to deter me from chanting. If you don't like me chanting, move. Okay, I'm not going to stop. Okay, I try not to be impolite. I try not to be obtuse. But again, without sparing his voice is how we should all feel about the Daimoku as well. Okay, because you can't do this if you don't chant, and you got to chant a lot. And a lot of people chant less as they grow older in their faith. They don't chant more. Okay? It becomes a ritual. It becomes something that they do. It's part of like what I got to check off in order to get my day started, what I got to check off in order to finish my day and not be in trouble with the practice. Okay? That's not the purpose. That's not the point. The point is to attain Buddhahood in your present form. And if you've attained Buddhahood in your present form, then you got to do it to the last moment of your life. Okay? So, without sparing his voice and to selflessly dedicate himself to propagating this supreme teaching. That's the other thing that the bodhisattvas of the earth do. Exactly that same thing. Without sparing their voices, they selflessly dedicate themselves to propagating this supreme teaching. In other words, the Daishonin, middle of first column, page 109. In other words, that Daishonin clearly established Nam-myoho Renge Kyo of the three great secret laws and laid the solid foundation for Kosen Rufu into the eternal future of the latter day of the law. Did the three great secret laws exist prior to Nichiren? No. They're as original as Nam-myoho Renge Kyo is. Okay? This constituted, now, they represent things that are present in Buddhist teachings that preceded it. That's what the purpose of the object of devotion, the invocation, and the place where it's enshrined is all about. But again, in terms of a philosophy inclusive of the three great secret laws, that's not found in Tiantai's teaching. That's not found in Nagarjuna. That's from Nichiren. This constituted the fulfillment of his fundamental vow and the greatest way to repay his debt of gratitude to his late teacher. Employing such simile as the deeper the roots, the more prolific the branches. We all know that one. The farther the source, the longer the stream. That's from W&D 736. That would have been, that would have been from the same Gosho, repaying debts of gratitude. To highlight that the mystic law is the fundamental and eternal law, he then continues with the passage above, which is what I just read. Carrying on the Daishonen's great and encompassing compassion on page 109, second column. The law is eternal and ever abiding. But no matter how wonderful the law is, its infinite power cannot be revealed, its infinite power can be revealed only when people practice it. Let me start that over. The law is eternal and ever abiding. In other words, it's always there. It never goes away. It's ever present in all things, okay? Even when earth is destroyed, it will still be there. It's in the universe. The law is eternal and ever abiding, but no matter how wonderful the law is, its infinite power means it's limitless, can be revealed only when people practice it. And they must practice it correctly, or else they'll become disillusioned because they're not following the teaching correctly. He says the law does not spread by itself. Because people propagate it, both the people and the law are respect-worthy. So he just qualifies there again, the oneness of ourselves and the Gohonzon, says the Daishonin. As human beings, however, each of us is subject to the inexorable realities of aging, sickness, and death. So the question becomes how we, with our finite lifespans, can perpetuate the law in society. Nichiren Daishonin manifested the eternal mystic law, which can only be understood between Buddhas. We all know that from the second chapter of the Lotus Sutra, right? And that's what that LSOC 57 will take you to. It'll take you right to this expedient means chapter of the Lotus Sutra. Nichiren Daishonin manifested the eternal mystic law, which can only be understood between Buddhas in the form of the Gohonzon of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, encompassing the three great secret laws. In this way, he made it possible for us ordinary people in the latter day, which is rife with confusion and suffering, to believe in and practice the mystic law. We chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo to the Gohonzon, and that's the whole key. Why does he keep mentioning the three great secret laws here? Because it's not just about chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. It's about chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo to the correct object of devotion. And the correct object of devotion has got to be treated with the respect that's required, means that it's got to be enshrined. Okay? And that's the entity of the law he was referring to earlier. Do you understand? You share that. That's not outside of you.
Yeah.
That is you. Okay? When we chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo to the Gohonzon, our lives connect with the great vow of the bodhisattvas of the earth, the vow to propagate the Lotus Sutra in the evil age after the Buddha's passing, made during the ceremony of entrustment at the close of the ceremony of the air. What could he have also just said? When we chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo to the Gohonzon, our lives connect with the great vow of the bodhisattvas of the earth. We actually reveal our true identity. Okay, as bodhisattvas of the earth. Because as long as we haven't quit chanting, we're still bodhisattvas of the earth. Do you follow? All right. So, put another way, it is only with Nichiren Daishonen's establishment of the three great secret laws, and he says that again because he's talking about the Gohonzon, the correct object of devotion, and the correct way that you keep it. And all of this comes from the Gohonzon, right? Nam-myoho Renge-kyo comes from a Gohonzon. It's not the other way around. That's why it's so important for you to understand that point, that the Gohonzon is the basis of everything. That's the entity. Okay? All right. Put another way, it is only with Nichiren Daishonen's establishment of the three great secret laws and the appearance of the bodhisattvas of the earth who embrace and spread this teaching, his teaching, that it has become possible to widely disseminate the mystic law throughout society and open the way to enlightenment for all people into the eternal future, because now it's all over the world. I can see as many people slandering Nam-myoho Renge, slandering as embracing. It doesn't matter. They still all become Buddhists. Okay? Continuing on page 110. And I got a star here. When the Daishonin wrote, if Nichiren's compassion is truly great and encompassing, he must have been picturing in his mind's eye the emergence of an ever-growing network of individuals dedicated to practicing the mystic law. These bodhisattvas of the earth, as his successors, possessing the same mind as Nichiren. How many times have I emphasized that? Same mind as Nichiren, same mind as Nichiren. That's the only way all of this works, the way it promises it will work. Okay? And burning with the great vow for Kosen Rufu. How is James, by the way, Jean? How is James?
I think he's okay.
He's okay. Okay, tell him I said hi.
Okay.
All right. But again, he's got to do all the things that you got to do for him to see the result that he so desperately
I
seeks.
think in and out.
Well, that's my point.
Yes.
That's not doing what this is saying you must do.
Yeah.
So how can you expect the result? Okay? And it doesn't happen because you say it should happen. It happens when you make it happen. Okay? There's a difference. Tell him I send him my love. These bodhisattvas of the earth, as his successors, possessing the same mind as Nichiren, from WND 385, and that would have been, I don't know, and burning with a great vow for Kosen Rufu, would lead the people of the Sahe world to enlightenment. In Japan and around the world today, who is it that is propagating the mystic law with perseverance and confidence? Who is carrying out the noble work of the Buddha with great and encompassing compassion? Their hearts filled with a sense of pride and a mission as emissaries of the Buddha? Who has been courageously diving in amid the great sea of the people, encouraging those weighed down by suffering? And who has helped one individual after another rise out of the depths of despair, gain fresh vitality, and lead hope-filled lives? By introducing them to this Buddhism of the sowing. It is none other than the members of the SGI, because it's only that introduction of the Buddhism of sowing that these people can help other people. Okay? They're not endowed with some special skill just because they joined the organization. They have to practice correctly. They have to be of the same mind as Nichiren. They have to have taken the same vow that the bodhisattvas of the earth have taken to spread the law throughout the 10,000 years and beyond of the latter day. Page 110, first column, last paragraph. You and no one else, he's saying this to each one of us. You and no one else are the ones who have validated the Daishona's declaration. Now, when Nichiren chants Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, he is enabling all living beings to attain Buddhahood in the 10,000 years of the latter day of the law. From the orally transmitted teachings, page 41. And I won't go into it right now, although I have them ready to. A powerful declaration to change the karma of all humankind. It says it's the top of the second column of page 110. An SGI leader from India once presented me with a photograph of the source of the Ganges River. The headwaters of that great timeless river, originating in Himalayan glaciers, form incredibly powerful rapids flowing with an unstoppable force and momentum like a charging roaring lion. I think that the Daishona's declaration of his great and encompassing compassion describes his powerful, surging determination that Nam-myoho Renge-kyo will nourish all humanity with the water of wisdom for peace and happiness, just like the mighty Ganges flows forth from the thundering mountain rapids. Nichiren asserts that the mystic law, the fundamental law of the universe, and the Buddhist practice based on that law are the source of the beneficial power to open the blind eyes of every living being in the country of Japan. We can read Japan in this statement, to mean the entire world, because it's throughout Jambudvipa, right? With strong faith in the mystic law, we can break through fundamental ignorance. What is fundamental ignorance? Very much karma. It's part of our original state. It's fundamental darkness. It's basically delusion. It's basically delusion. And so everybody has some delusion that they have to deal with. How do we get rid of our delusion? By chanting to the Gohonzon. It's this 3 great secret laws thing he's been talking about right now, okay? With strong faith in the mystic law, that means being of the same mind as Nichiren, we can break through fundamental ignorance, which are the things that keep us from being able to perceive this truth as the truth, okay? And awaken to and to reveal the Buddhahood within us. This is how we attain Buddhahood in our present form, is only by overcoming all of those fundamental darkness issues that keep us from perceiving that what the sutra and what the teaching's actually talking about is not just things that are relevant to the time that it was written. It's talking about us. It's talking about us. You got to take seriously the fact that you're a bodhisattva of the earth. That's an eternal identity. It's not a transient one. Okay? Once a bodhisattva of the earth, always a bodhisattva of the earth, frankly. Okay? So, every one of us can bring the sun to shine brightly within our lives. Next, the Daishonin speaks of blocking off the road that leads to the hell of incessant suffering. The road that leads to the hell of incessant suffering here is a denunciation of slander of the law. And boy, did I read a lot of that this week. Such as that epitomized by the Pure Land Nembutsu teaching of his day. The Daishonin statement with reference to blocking that road expresses his conviction that he is able to not only save his teacher Dozenbo, who never completely relinquished his faith in the Nembutsu teaching, but also help people now and in all future ages enter the way to happiness. The determination to search out those who are suffering, help them become happy, and prevent them from falling into a life of despair and regret. Despair and regret. That's all delusion, because you cannot be taking responsibility for your karma. Okay? If you're seeing or experiencing it from that perspective. Despair means that you have hope, no hope. Okay? And regret means you wish you hadn't done what you've done. Okay? Rather than owning your karma. You made the causes. Whatever occurred is a reflection of that. You got nobody to blame. Suck it up and make it different. That's how you turn it into sunshine from darkness. Okay? This is the heart of the mentors and disciples of Soka. Because sometimes it takes people that have been around a little bit longer, have gone through more stuff than you have, to be able to put in perspective for you what you're experiencing in a given moment. That's what a mentor is. It's nothing more than a fellow practitioner that shares their experience for the sake of you being able to get through the moment of trial that you're having at a particular time. It's not to create a hierarchy of mentors and disciples. It never is. Mentor and disciple is always exactly perfectly equal, because of the vow of the Buddha is to make everyone equal to himself. It's not about becoming something superior in life. Okay? Okay, this is the heart of the mentors and disciples of Soka, who carry on the compassionate lion's roar of Nichiren Daishonin. That's why we study the Gosho. That's his teaching. That's where we learn his lion's roar. We can emulate other people. If you want to really know about the lion's roar, read the Gosho. At the same time, that's where President Ikeda's coming through for this whole lecture. This is all coming from the Gosho. At the same time, his reference to blocking off the road that leads to hell, to the hell of incessant suffering, can also be read as a powerful declaration to change the karma of all humankind and to prevent the slide into catastrophe of all human social groups, from the family to the nation to society as a whole. Dispelling the darkness of distrust and powerlessness, from page 111, first column. When we look at human history, we see the repeated tragedy of countless lives being swept up in and destroyed by natural disasters. I mean, we could just look at today's YouTube and see every bit of all of this happening right now. All kinds of floods, all kinds of typhoons, all kinds of bad stuff happening, war, all kinds of famine happening because of places that used to grow stuff. With globalization, we became dependent upon the breadbasket of Ukraine and Russia. And now a lot of places like Africa don't have enough grain. They don't have enough food. There's literally a scarcity crisis that's occurring right now as we are sitting here. When we look at human history, we see the repeated tragedy of countless lives being swept up in and destroyed by natural disasters, war, famine, and other calamities. All of this is right now, guys. These are harsh realities that drive home just how frail human existence is, how essentially powerless we are against forces greater than ourselves. From ancient times, many have advocated the need for people to resign themselves to calamities. Just accept them. There's nothing you can do about it. You can't change that kind of stuff. The Risho and Kokoran says you can. You can pacify the land through the propagation of the correct teaching. Okay? When the people's life condition reflects Buddhahood, that's what the environment will as well. You won't have that stuff anymore. That's what the pacification of the land means. The propagation law for the peace of the land means the elimination of natural disasters. It means that war would no longer occur. It means that famine, therefore, would not occur, and other calamities would not occur. There's no collective karma to bring forth that darkness to be thrown on people anymore. Do you understand? All right, so these are harsh realities that drive home just how frail human existence is, how essentially powerless we are against forces greater than ourselves. From ancient times, many have advocated the need for people to resign themselves to calamities, to the workings of fate or destiny that are seen as beyond their ability or to understand or control. But a century ago, the French author Romain Rolland raised a dissenting voice, challenging the assumption that war is inevitable. At that time, nation after nation was rushing headlong into the conflict that would become World War I, succumbing to what he called the venerable refrain that the frailty of war is stronger than our wills. In other words, we couldn't make the determination to not do this. We just went along with the flow that swept us into it. And that's how World War I occurred. Actually, nation after nation got involved. It all started with the Archduke of Austria getting assassinated. What did that have to do with all of Europe? Okay, other than the connection of all the royal families. Okay, Roland cried out, "There is no fatality. The only fatality is what we desire, and more often too, what we do not desire enough. We do not desire enough to have peace, to understand and have compassion for others, okay? To be Buddhas in our present form." That's really what he's talking about. He adamantly rejected the irresponsible tendency of the political and opinion leaders of the time to allow themselves to accept war as an unavoidable fate of humanity. Ultimately, the root cause of conflict and human misery lies in the helpless feeling that an individual can't make a difference. In other words, in an ignorance of an inability to believe in the dignity and infinite potential of human beings. Let me say it again. Ultimately, the root cause of conflict and human misery lies in the helpless feeling that an individual can't make a difference, in other words, difference. In other words, in an ignorance and inability to believe in the dignity and infinite potential of human beings. When does that occur? When people helplessly give in to fundamental darkness. Okay? When they don't stand up for what's right because they don't want to become unpopular or put themselves at risk. When they don't say the truth because they don't want to upset somebody.
Right.
Okay? That's what he's talking about. The late South African President Nelson Mandela, whom I deeply admire, who ended apartheid in South Africa with his remonstration with that government, whom I deeply admire, also battled against this in his struggle against racial discrimination. I cannot help regarding the Daishonin's lion's roar of blocking off the road that leads to the hell of incessant suffering as an assault on the darkness of distrust and disrespect for human beings. In his treatise on establishing the correct teaching for the peace of the land, page 112, top first column, the Daishonin exposes the fundamental reasons why people fall into the hell of incessant suffering. Thank you. See if you can make them stop. That's Brownie. Rather than offering up, pardon me, that was a little bit, sorry. In his treatise on establishing the correct teaching for the peace of the land, the Daishonin exposes the fundamental reasons why people fall into the hell of incessant suffering. The fundamental reason why people fall into the hell of incessant suffering. Rather than offering up 10,000 prayers for remedy, he writes, it would be better simply to outlaw this one evil. From page 15 of WND 1. Now that's a very complex thought that he's actually conveying at that moment in that part of that writing. And it's being paraphrased pretty liberally here, but that's okay. I'll bring this up when I read the Risho and Kokoran to you again. And the only thing to do now is to abandon the evil ways and take up those that are good, to cut off this affliction at the root, to cut it off, pardon me. The only thing to do now is to abandon the evil ways and take up those that are good, to cut off this affliction at the source, to cut it off at the root. Now he's really talking about Honan. And he's saying basically, wouldn't it be simpler just to get rid of this guy? We wouldn't have this slander of the law going on that's impacting our whole country. But then he says, you know, there's a whole different thing there. I'll read it to you. The Daishonin issued his warnings about the calamity of warfare, and more specifically, foreign invasion and internal strife, 2 of the 3 calamities and 7 disasters, to reject the assumptions of unchangeable destiny and human powerlessness, to block off the roads that lead to the hell of incessant suffering, and to prevent humanity from falling into cruel and tragic misfortune. And what is he basically saying there? What is President Ikeda talking about as a reference of the Daishonin saying all of this? What was his whole point of the Risho and Kokoran? What initiated that? Of course, it was the propagation of the law, but what was he saying was going to happen if people didn't listen to him? Foreign invasion and internal strife, the 2 of the 7 calamities that hadn't occurred. Okay, that's what he was basically qualifying. This is how we make sure that those other 2, this is what will save us from invasion by the Mongols. Okay, the Daishonin issued his warning, page 112, first column. I'm going back over it again. The Daishonin issued his warning about the calamity and warfare, and that's what he's talking about, the invasion of the Mongols, and internal strife was a conflict between 2 warring factions of the imperial society. In fact, it was the warriors versus the emperors. More specifically, foreign invasion and internal strife, 2 of the 3 calamities and 7 disasters. To reject the assumptions of unchangeable destiny and human powerlessness, to block off the road that leads to the hell of incessant suffering, and to prevent humanity from falling into cruel and tragic misfortune. I'm probably not being clear here, but his point is that the Risho and Kokoran is a treatise to express doctrinally why pacification of the land is possible. We can do away with war. We can do away with famine. We can do away with human misery. It is within the realm of an empowerment, the limitless power of human beings to accomplish that. But not if you don't think you can. Not if there's a blueprint or some sort of a premise that says these things that seem impossible and unavoidable. That's why they were stressed to be, just accept all that stuff. Okay? That's what this is talking about. It's only Nichiren's teaching that qualifies that. There's Armageddon in Christianity. There's the end of the world in every other damn philosophy that I'm aware of as the solution. Okay? It's retribution. It's not deliverance. Okay? Except for the true believers. Okay? Kosen Rufu is for everybody. It's even for the non-believers. Okay? They will also experience this lack of war, lack of famine, lack of calamity. Right along with us. That's why our compassion as bodhisattvas of the earth, we're not saying it's only for us that deserve it or have created it through our efforts. We're saying we want to change the destiny of humankind. That's what President Ikeda is talking about as far as the destiny of the Soka network. He's really talking about, let's do Kosen Rufu. All right? Continuing on page 112, bringing the spirit of compassion to contemporary society. All right? The 20th century experienced two wars of epic proportions, during the latter of which nuclear weapons were developed, opening the door to the previously unheard of possibility of the annihilation of the entire human race. Now in the 21st century, rapid environmental destruction poses a grave threat to the survival of life on our planet. With the growth of globalization, we also face worldwide hazards in the form of economic crises and epidemics. Now, I don't know if you're aware of it, but globalization right now is in a process of collapse. It's not in a process of continuance or expansion. It is absolutely not, no more. Whether you're aware of that or not. Supply chains are all changing. All the kinds of, everybody's shrinking into their own space. They are. Okay? I got enough for me. That's all I care about. That's the mindset of many people throughout the world. Yeah. Okay? And they don't think about the world as a whole. They only think about where they live. Okay? All right, so bringing the spirit of compassion to contemporary society. The 20th century experienced two world wars of epic proportions, during the latter of which nuclear weapons were developed, opening the door to previously unheard of possibility of the annihilation of the entire human race. Now in the 21st century, rapid environmental destruction poses a grave threat to the survival of life on our planet. With the growth of globalization, we also face worldwide hazards in the form of economic crises and epidemics. These are things that are right now. They're going on right now, both of those things. In there, and he wrote this, this is from 2015, okay? Is there a way to prevent the destruction of the human race? President Ikeda postulates this question. This is an issue we are forced to face today, a question we can no longer afford to ignore because the potential of it happening is real. Okay, the Soka Gakkai and the SGI emerged in the era in which the threats to human survival surfaced. During World War II, Japan's militarist authorities employed state Shinto as their spiritual pillar to rouse the populace to war. Striving, by the way, Shinto is like the emperor is like God. Spirit, he's immortally, he's there because he's supposed to be. He's better than everybody else. He's a different kind of human being. That obviously is all not the way it is anymore. But at the time of prior to World War II and the defeat of the Japanese military, that is exactly what Shinto was in Japan. I'll say it again. During World War II, Japan's militarist authorities employed state Shinto as their spiritual pillar to rouse the populace to war, because the people around the emperor just used this sense of what the emperor was to manipulate society. Striving wholeheartedly for the happiness of the people, the Soka Gakkai, Striving wholeheartedly for the happiness of the people, first Soka Gakkai President Tanesaburo Makaguchi courageously rejected demands to embrace state Shinto and declared that the time had come to remonstrate with the nation's leaders. As a result, he died in prison for his beliefs. Second President Josei Toda, vowing to fight against the brutal ultranationalism and devilish nature of power that led to his mentor's death, stood up alone amid the devastation of post-war Japan and raised high the banner of Kosen Rufu. The vow for Kosen Rufu in Asia and for the westward transmission of Buddhism burned brightly in Mr. Toda's heart. Now, why was the westward transmission of Buddhism an important thing to President Toda? No different than he also made a determination about the ordination platform in Japan. Recreating Dengyo's ordination platform, while all other schools must go for their official indoctrination into whatever they're doing in a religious way. What is the westward where does the westward transmission of Buddhism come from? Comes from Nichiren Daishonin. Nichiren Daishonin is the one that said it will expand westward, okay? So President Toda, if Nichiren had expressed a desire or had prophesied that this is the way it would go down, President Toda had complete conviction that that's the way it was going to go down. And that's the way we should go ahead and position ourselves, because that's the way it's going to go down. It's already been prophesied by Nichiren Daishonin, all right? He had deep empathy for the people of Asia and the world who suffered endless war and conflict. And at a time in which, and by the way, this might be why President Ikeda went to China, went to Russia. That's west of Japan. Okay? That was to fulfill his mentor's determination. All right? The vow for, and both of those countries right now, we've got a long way to go to have freedom of religion there to be able to actually propagate the law. All right? But the way has been opened. The vow for Kosen Rufu in Asia and for the westward transmission of Buddhism burned brightly in Mr. Toda's heart. He had deep empathy for the people of Asia and the world who suffered endless war and conflict. And at a time in which fear of an all-out nuclear war was widespread, he issued his declaration for the abolition of nuclear weapons on September 8, 1957. It was a heroic call to sever at the root the dynamic forces that threaten people's right to life and prevent humanity from falling into hellish suffering. Mr. Toda said, "I keenly feel that our present times are characterized by people going about their daily lives with no sense of compassion for others. Callousness and indifference define our times." Now again, 2015, when President Ikeda is writing this, the world was a different place. China was not being ruled in the way China is being ruled right now. Right. Russia wasn't either. There were no conflicts of war. And I mean, we had come into a very wonderful time in the history of the 20th century. Okay? Callousness and indifference define our times. He further added, we must foster more people whose actions naturally overflow with compassion. What's the ultimate compassion? Opening the door by letting someone hear the name and the words of the truth. Letting them hear Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. That is the ultimate compassion. Because once you've done that, they're not going to go back. Okay? They're no longer a Buddha in theory. That's the greatest compassion, to turn a common mortal into a Buddha. All right? The aim of our movement for Kosen Rufu is to cause a warm current of compassion to course ever more vibrantly through our cold-hearted society and open the way to a new age of humanity characterized by peace and happiness. Buddhism exists for those who are suffering, page 113, first column. I'd like to explain a little further now what compassion means in Buddhism. Buddhist compassion has two aspects, namely, freeing from suffering and bringing joy. That's again from the OTG. I'd read that to you next time. The Japanese word for compassion, jihi, is written with two Chinese characters, which respectively represent the Sanskrit or Pali word Maitri, meaning friendship, and karune, or anukampa, meaning pity, sympathy, kindness, and empathy. In the early Buddhist text titled Loving Kindness, we find the words, whatever living beings there be, seen or unseen, those dwelling far or near, those who are born or those who are to be born, may all beings be happy. These words show how expansive and all-inclusive compassion is in Buddhism. Such compassion is such compassion is also impartial. What does that mean? Such compassion is also impartial. It can be conceived as extending infinitely in all directions and eternally throughout time. By the same token, however, by its very nature, compassion is not focused in equal portion upon everyone, but is directed especially to those who are suffering the most. Let me say that paragraph again. Over the dogs, apologize for all of that barking. They're fussing with each other. Such compassion is also impartial. Now, what does he mean by saying it's also impartial? It's not for anyone in particular. It's for whoever needs it. Okay? It can be conceived as extending infinitely in all directions and eternally throughout time. By the same token, however, by its very nature, compassion is not focused in equal portion upon everyone, but is directed especially to those who are suffering the most. The Daishonin recounts how Shakyamuni, as his death drew near, was most concerned about King Ajatashatru, who had committed terrible offenses. Quoting Shakyamuni explaining his worries, the Daishonin writes, even if there are many children, the parents' hearts are with the child who is ill. And the Daishonin also says this in another one of his goshos. Who is suffering the most? Who needs our help most? It is those in our immediate environment who are suffering. I have consistently stressed that those who have suffered the most, deserve to become the happiest. Buddhism exists for those enduring the greatest suffering. The light of compassion shines when we empathize with such people, when we feel their sufferings as our own, when we take action putting ourselves in their shoes. From a broader perspective, the basic purpose of Buddhism. Okay. From a broader perspective, the basic person. See, he just wants treats. That's all this is about. From a broader perspective, the basic purpose of Buddhism is to reach out to relieve the suffering of all those striving their hardest to live in this troubled and afflicted Sahe world, or world of endurance, in the most difficult age of the latter day of the law. What is essential to rising above suffering? It is being aware of the preciousness of life and trusting and respecting people. This is because the fundamental cause of suffering lies in denying the preciousness of life and distrusting others. When we, at the top of page 114, first column, when we awaken to the fact that all life is absolutely precious, no matter what color it is, no matter where it was born, okay, no matter how it becomes manifest, life is life. When we awaken to the fact that all life is absolutely precious, that nothing we experience in this world is ever wasted or in vain, because it's always going to be a part of our karma, and that we ourselves are also precious treasures. That's the most important part, because you can't tell somebody else they're a precious treasure if you don't perceive the reality that you are one now. There emerges within us a powerful self-confidence, an unshakable sense of security, and limitless gratitude. The recognition that the lives of all others too are infinitely precious engenders a deep respect for people, a firm trust in them, and an all-encompassing compassion, as President Ikeda is expressing his sentiment And that's the truth. Page 114, first column, actions to relieve people's sufferings. One expression of the compassion we have been discussing is the spirit to refute error and lead people to the correct teaching. So is compassion just about giving hungry people food, or people that need a blanket, or no. It's to teach the correct, propagate the teaching that pacifies the land and has the power to allow them to eradicate their karma. Okay? One expression of the compassion we have been discussing is the spirit to refute error and lead people to the correct teaching. That's what we do. We try to lead each other to the correct teaching. As the great teacher Chang'an of China said, if one befriends another person but lacks the mercy to correct him, one is in fact his enemy. One who rids the offender of evil, in other words, telling them they're wrong, is acting as his parent. If one truly cares about others, the essence of compassionate action is to help them rectify their error, and sharing the Daishonen's teaching is the correct way to do that. That's why you can't let slander just pass and kind of go, oh, I feel so bad for you. In your mind. You can say it out loud. That's perfect response. Okay? I feel so bad for you. You have no clue what you're doing to yourself. The Daishonin states 100 years of practice in the Pure Land, or in the land of perfect bliss, cannot compare to the benefit gained from one day's practice in the impure land. In contrast, the teachings of the Pure Land school, Nimbutsu, Amida, which were prevalent in his day, deplored the Sahe world, regarding it as the impure land. The school taught that through the exclusive practice of Nimbutsu, that is, chanting the name of Amida Buddha, believers would be reborn in the Pure Land of perfect bliss, 100,000 million Buddha lands to the west, where they could practice in ease and comfort and attain Buddhahood. Not that they would go there and become Buddhas, but that it would be easier for them to go there, and it would be easier to become Buddhas there. But such an ideal is no more than a fantasy. 100,000 million Buddha lands to the west, okay. But such an ideal place is no more than a fantasy. We have no choice but to carve open and create the way to happiness right here and now in this world of suffering where we live. The Daishonin rejected is no more than a temporary palliative that belief or philosophy, any belief that encouraged resignation and escapism. The Daishonin rejected is no more than a temporary palliative, any belief or philosophy that encouraged resignation or escapism. He insisted that the correct practice for the latter day of the law is to strive right here, amid the real challenges of this Sahe world. This is the fundamental way for people to become happy. The practice of propagating Buddhism originally constitutes the Buddha's work, a Buddhist practice that cannot be accomplished without compassion. But it is actually very difficult for us ordinary people to bring forth such compassion. Yes, it is. That's why Mr. Toda taught that we can substitute courage for compassion. And taking his guidance to heart, our members have courageously gone out among the people into society to spread Nichiren Buddhism. Each day we strive in our Buddhist practice in the impure world, dedicating our lives to sharing Buddhism with others. Each day that we strive in our Buddhist practice in the impure world, dedicating our lives to sharing Buddhism with others, allows us to accumulate unsurpassed benefit, write a golden record of human revolution, and shine with supreme treasures of the heart. We're almost there. Page 115 top. Now is the time, and now is the time to spread the mystic law. On practicing the Buddha's teachings, the letter he composed while in exile on Sado Island, Nichiren Daishonin writes, "This is the age of conflict in which the pure law has been lost." Read, what did Nichiren say again here? This is the age of conflict in which the pure law has been lost. What's the pure law? The teachings of Shakyamuni. What is the great pure law? Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. That's why he's saying what he's saying. Okay? This is the age, this is the fifth 500-year period. This is Mappo now, kids. That's what he's saying. This is the age of conflict in which the pure law has been lost. Moreover, this evil country of Japan, the ruler, his ministers, and even the common people are without exception tainted by evil. They have opposed the correct teaching and revered erroneous doctrines and teachers instead. Therefore, demons have burst into the country, causing the 3 calamities and 7 disasters to strike again and again. This is indeed an accursed time to live in this land. However, the Buddha has commanded me to be born in this age. From WND 1, page 392. In the Daishonin's day, given the calamitous situation in society, people keenly felt that the evil age of the latter day of the law had arrived. Pardon me. Thinking the world was doomed, they were filled with despair and resignation. But in stark contrast to this, precisely because it was the evil age of the latter day of the law, the Daishonin resolved that now was the time to stand up and reveal the highest, most powerful teaching for bringing benefit to all people. The time to widely propagate the mystic law. Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. This was his stance as the Buddha of the latter day of the law. The bodhisattvas of the earth do not courageously choose to initiate their struggle in the latter day of the law based on whether they will be successful or not. Rather, they do it because it is the necessary and right thing to do. God, what a powerful and important and correct statement that is. Us, he's talking about. The bodhisattvas of the earth do not courageously choose to initiate their struggle in the latter day of the law, propagating the correct teaching based on whether they will be successful or not. Rather, they do it because it is the necessary. They're bodhisattvas of the earth. This is what they do. This is why they were born. Rather, they do it because it is the necessary and right thing to do. They stand up as individuals, not as groupthink. Because the darker and more perilous the age, the more it becomes time for a powerful philosophy to shine forth like the sun, dispelling the gloom of despair. This is what Mr. Makaguchi did. It is what Mr. Toda did. We too have stood up resolutely. That is the spirit of the SGI. And our members, bodhisattvas of the earth, throughout Japan and around the world, have gone on to sow the seeds of peace in people's hearts and build an era of humanism. Page 115, second column in the middle. A religion that serves as a sun of hope for humanity. 20 years ago, on January 17th, 1995, the great Hanshin earthquake struck Kobe and other parts of the Kansai region of Japan. It killed many people and caused terrible damage and destruction. I don't know if you guys remember that. 1995. I don't know how old you were in 1995. I was an old guy already. All right. The shock and pain of that are still with me. It killed many people and caused terrible damage and destruction. The shock and pain of that time are still with me. During that trying period, amid the darkness of grief, our members, following the Daishonin's teaching that Myo of Myoho the mystic law. That sound you're hearing is public services. That's not coming from us. Should I wait for that to pass? Okay. During that trying period, amid the darkness of grief, our members, following the Daishonin's teaching that Myo of Myoho the mystic law means to revive, earnestly encouraged one another and rose up like phoenixes. They made the sun of this truly humanistic religion rise brilliantly as a source of hope to go on living. Immediately after the earthquake, top of page 116, Rosa Parks, an American human rights activist and a dear friend of the SGI, sent a message to the young women's division members of the Hyogo Prefecture and other affected parts of Kansai. She encouraged them that now was the time for them to rouse their courage and set to the task of rebuilding and, through their example, inspire the world. She wrote that she was confident they would challenge the difficulties of their situation with the spirit expressed in the song, "We Shall Overcome," from the Civil Rights Movement in the United States. Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr., the youthful leader of the American Civil Rights Movement, said that Mrs. Parks, who stood up and said no in the face of racial discrimination, was at the right place at the right time, having been tracked down by the zeitgeist, the spirit of the time. Now, by the way, what did Rosa Parks do? I know you guys don't know that. What was the significance of Rosa Parks? Okay, in the 50s, before the Civil Rights Movement in the United States, black Americans were not treated equally as white Americans. Okay, and that was called segregation. They were segregated. They could not live in the same space with white people. They could only get jobs in certain kinds of industries and at certain kinds of levels. There was a completely thing that held them down. One of the things that the insult that the majority white community imposed upon those black people, because most of them didn't have cars, they had to take public transportation, right? Buses. She wouldn't give up her seat on the bus and move to the back of the bus like she was supposed to as a black woman.
Yeah.
Okay, and she got like busted, put in jail, and that started a whole protest that ultimately led to a lot of other changes that elevated that state of life for those people and diminished the level of segregation and bigotry based on race that America suffered from. So he goes on to say, she says, Martin Luther King says she was just at the right place at the right time. She triggered all of this stuff to happen just by saying, I'm not going to give up my seat. Right. Okay? We can have that same kind of effect. We don't know we can until we do it, until we try to. All right? At times of dramatic historical change, it often happens that a person and the right time come together in mysterious ways, working in wondrous harmony. Bottom of the first column, page 116. The SGI's compassionate movement to bring the world together. King observed, human progress never rolls in on wheels of inevitability. Human progress, he stressed, occurs through the tireless efforts of people with a deep awareness of their mission. On the other hand, he said, without this hard work, time itself becomes an ally of the forces of social stagnation. That is why King concluded, we must use time creatively, in the knowledge that the time is always right to do right. It was not simply sitting and waiting that the time for worldwide Kosen-Rufu was set in motion. The time was created by our members who have stood up to take action, determined to make this the time. The time for this great Buddhist teaching to flourish has come because the time makes it so, as the Daishonin writes. And today, compassionate bodhisattvas of the earth with a profound mission are emerging in a steady stream everywhere around the world. Continuing page 116, middle of second column, the underlying power of the bodhisattvas of the earth to overcome difficulties. At the meeting where the SGI was inaugurated 40 years ago, Guam, I concluded my speech with the following words: as courageous, compassionate, and dedicated disciples of Nichiren Buddhism, of Nichiren Daishonin, let me say this correctly because this is President Ikeda's quotation. I concluded my speech with the following words: as courageous, compassionate, and dedicated disciples of Nichiren Daishonin, who are fully committed to truth and justice, please live out your lives in a positive and uplifting way, striving for the prosperity of your countries, the happiness of the people, and the precious existence of humankind itself. We all live in this Saha world. Everyone sincerely wishes for peace and happiness. Everyone has problems and is struggling their way through life. Many have been harmed and remain deeply traumatized by violent forces of division and conflict afflicting nations, societies, and peoples, just like I was just talking about. Others, though living in apparently prosperous countries, are suffering from discrimination and widening economic and social disparities. Amid the realities of society, SGI members are praying for their own and others' happiness and for world peace, while courageously striving for their own human revolution and to transform their karma. They are creating ties of friendship and trust on a broad scale. Some encountered this Buddhism as refugees driven from their countries by war and conflict, only to return later and work for Kosen Rufu there. Others live in countries that have been divided by war and are now communicating and working together closely as they create an alliance of those chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. All of these members have stood up resolutely on their own initiative, vowing to fulfill their personal missions wherever they are without leaving it to others. There are no limits to what bodhisattvas of the earth can accomplish. SGI members go anywhere, reaching out to people in every conceivable circumstance or situation. Embodying the Lotus Sutra passage, they are clever at difficult questions and answers. Their minds know no fear. They have firmly cultivated persevering minds. They have overcome misunderstanding, insult, and social discrimination with courageous, wise, and sincere dialogue. Our members have reached out, top of page 117, second column. Our members have reached out to people submerged in unspeakable despair and grief. At times, their dialogue with such individuals has been just a warm pat on the back or tears shed together. But they have never lost hope. They believe that all people have the underlying power to prevail over any hardship, to bounce back from adversity, and to transform their karma into mission. I believe that. In its early days, people often denigrated the Soka Gakkai as a gathering of the poor and sick. But Mr. Toda declared in rebuttal that only a truly powerful religion could help those suffering so deeply, and that reaching out to such individuals was an act of compassion. SGI members never abandon those who are suffering. They strive tirelessly as noble bodhisattvas for the happiness and victory of themselves and others. I firmly believe that the spirit of great and compassion and encompassing compassion, of which the Daishonin speaks, lives on vitally in their actions. We are entering an age when, for the first time in human history, ordinary citizens around the world are forming grassroots networks. Grassroots networks. That's exactly what we've done here with our videos. All right? We are entering an age when, for the first time in human history, ordinary citizens around the world, that would be us, are forming grassroots networks. The great Russian author and inspirational world citizen Leo Tolstoy wrote in his final year, "Only the growth of love among people can change society for the better. All of history is the story of the increasing manifestations of this law of harmony among all living beings." What Tolstoy is talking about is the expansion of compassion. Last page, page 118, first column. So let's all become more compassionate.
Yeah.
Striving for the dynamic development of our people's movement. I would like to, but I can't. When the spirit of compassion, I'll have to take my glasses off to do it. When the spirit of compassion permeates and pulses vibrantly in every corner of society, the world is certain to become a much brighter and happier place. Our people's movement is continuing to develop. It is dedicated to creating an age of humanism and respect for the dignity of life, unmistakably opening the way for the dawn of that new day. Actions by people awakened to their mission to create a society of great and encompassing compassion are certain to change and elevate the life state of humanity. Our world, which the sutras liken to a burning house, will be transformed into one of peace, where people no longer kill one another. That is the cherished wish of our Soka movement and the mission of the SGI. As long as there are suffering people, the SGI struggle will go on. Mr. Toda declared, second column, page 118. Mr. Toda declared that he wished to rid the world of misery. Kosen Rufu is the effort to eliminate humanity's suffering and spread the workings of compassion around the globe. It is the eternal endeavor to keep on sowing the seeds of happiness and peace. Our Soka network is striving to bring humanity together through the spirit of compassion. The start of the year of dynamic development of the new era of worldwide Kosen Rufu signals the arrival of a new hope-filled springtime for our movement. The time for achieving further dynamic development of our network of Bodhisattvas of the earth is here. Let's take fresh, courageous action, uniting the hearts of those who wish for peace everywhere. Let's dance forward in high spirits on the stage of our communities, on the stage of the world. Thank you so much. See you next time.
Thank you.